welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Facebook, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. As always, I am Bryson Carver. Very excited to be with you on a jam-packed Wednesday show. Lot to get into, tons of football. Gonna get into my Pittsburgh Steelers in about 12 to 15 minutes and why I think Mike Tomlin is making a disastrous move in playing Russell Wilson over Justin Fields. Got a lot to say about that. Russell Wilson taking the first team snaps of practice today. I love Coach Tomlin. To me, this is an illogical step by Pittsburgh. Getting to that in about 12 to 15 minutes. Also, but we got a good one for carving up the context. You know, this segment has a lot of Aaron Rodgers, who we're going to lead the show off with, and a lot of Jerry Jones. Well, it's Jerry Jones today. It's his turn, who he let's just say, he made a fool of himself on Dallas radio yesterday. Getting to that and why, just to me, the unbelievable comments that he made that are very, very, very easily broken down and dissected into a way that makes him look really bad. That is actually how he looks. He looks really bad. Bryson's best 10, 45 to 50 minutes, my top 10 teams in the National Football League. Very excited to get into that. A lot of turnover in this Bryson's best 10. Get to that. And of course, the end of today's show. Sean Payton comes home, plays the New Orleans Saints. Got Broncos Saints, really fascinating Thursday night game. I know I say this every week, but you know, kudos to the NFL. They've gotten us some good Thursday night games, so very excited to get into all of the above. My man Patrick Brown, who's written some great articles for the Grid Network recently. Check those out, please. He's written one on the Jets and the Cowboys. He says, happy Wednesday. This fall weather, bad on seasonal allergies. I'll save my Cowboys comments for carving up the context. Well, I appreciate that, Patrick, who is obviously a big-time Dallas Cowboys fan. Again, please check his articles out on the Grid website. Patrick, feel free to promote your stuff here in the comments so that everybody can see where you can find it, because there's some great stuff. Let me adjust my camera here. There we go. All right, let's get into some football. But first, it has been something about Tuesdays for the New York Jets. I don't know what it is, but Tuesdays have been quite eventful for this football team. So last Tuesday, they fired the coach, Robert Saleh. He's gone. This Tuesday, yesterday morning, or as recent reports / an appearance on the Pat McAfee show would tell you, Davante Adams was a Jet yesterday morning, potentially as soon as Monday night. The Jets were finalizing the terms of that trade. So Davante Adams is now a New York Jet. After the Jets obviously lose that game on Monday Night Football to the Buffalo Bills 23-20. And what was ugly is a weird way to put it, because I think Josh Allen played really, really well in this game. Aside from a fumble, which the Bills were able to recover, followed by an unbelievable play by Allen getting outside the pocket and throwing a touchdown pass. Million penalties on either side, but to be exact, 11 penalties for 94 yards on the Bills. How about 11 penalties for 110 yards on the Jets? And I know there's a lot of criticism. Oh, there were too many flags. Most of those, if you look at the replay, most of them, with few exceptions, were penalties. That's the crazy thing about it. And this does almost nothing for the Jets. They're 2-4. They look like a 2-4 team. And kudos to them, by the way. They moved Nathaniel Hackett to, I guess, like an offensive assistant, quote unquote, to be exact. Aaron Rodgers' buddy, just to keep him on the staff, just to appease Aaron. More on that in a second. Jets offense actually looked good. Breece Hall, his best game of the season. They used, and Hackett never used this, they actually used pre-snap motion, right, to see if Buffalo's playing man or zone. Aaron Rodgers played really well. Again, that last interception, it wasn't a great throw by Aaron. It was a bad route by Mike Williams. We'll get into Aaron's quote about that in a few minutes. But more than anything, the safety made an insane play to close on that football, to go down the ground, to make that play up, pick that thing up off the turf before it hit the turf. Unbelievable play by the safety. Bills go on to close it out. And Aaron Rodgers, by the way, the bit continues, folks. I was living and dying on that last drive, but zero. Count that 0, 300-yard passing games for Aaron Rodgers since week 14 of the 2021 season. More on that in just a few minutes with Aaron, because we got a lot to talk about. But the thing that I really want to dissect and get into is now Davante Adams is a New York Jet. And we know he and Aaron Rodgers, I believe the two of them are like 7th all-time, if memory serves me correctly, in terms of the touchdown duo between the two. They combined for 76 touchdowns, if my notes serve me correctly, which is one of the greatest duos in the history of the NFL between quarterback and wide receiver. The problem with that is that was a very long time ago. That was Aaron Rodgers pre-Achilles, pre-turning 40, and pre-becoming increasingly more difficult. And increasingly, to his credit, and I'll give Aaron props, lied like a dog about it in the McAfee show, but I'll give him props. He He's pretty much gotten whatever he wants, which you can do that with a poorly run and, more aptly put, desperate franchise, which the New York Jets, of course, are with Woody Johnson as the owner and with Joe Douglas as the general manager. But if you look, I'm looking at this right now, okay? I'm sure Aaron Rodgers, who had this to say on the McAfee show last week when it comes to his lack of power with the Jets.
That I resent any of those accusations because they're patently false. And it's interesting the amount of power that people think that I have, which I don't.
I mean, of course he doesn't, right? There's no question he doesn't have any power with the Jets. That's why Davante Adams, Alan Lazard, Randall Cobb, Nathaniel Hackett, Tim Boyle, Malik Taylor, Billy Turner, Jake Hansen, and Dennis Kelly all became New York Jets after previously being Green Bay Packers and teammates with Aaron Rodgers. It's a total coincidence. That's nothing. These two things just so happen to occur in sequence. Of course, Aaron, per usual, was lying. But something else Aaron lies about not having power with is the power he has to shame teammates, and in some sense, the case of Mike Williams, get them traded. This is what he had to say, and I appreciate Aaron for this, right? This is at least he's consistent. If there's nothing about Aaron Rodgers, you know what you're going to get. You don't know how you're going to get it, but you know what you're going to get in the sense that, hey, if there's a mistake made at the end of the game, or if we lose, with the exception, by the way, last week of the Vikings game, he'll sit up there and say, hey, just want everybody to know, okay? The press is all here. All right, world listening, want everybody to know that last play, totally not my fault.
I'm looking at Allen. He puts his hand up. 3 guys go with him, so I'm throwing a no look to the red line. And when I just peek my eyes back there, he's running an inbreaker. So it's got to be down the red line.
So were you throwing that spot like to come back to it?
No, I was throwing it to the red line, but when I got to about here, I realized he was running an inbreaker, so I had to kind of adjust it a little bit. But the play is 2 guys vertical, 1 guy down the seam, 1 guy on the red line.
Total shocker. Mike Williams, who he was referring to in that clip where he essentially kind of dressed him down in a typical Aaron Rodgers passive-aggressive way. Shocker. He's on the trade block and didn't practice today. The pressure's on Aaron now more than ever because he's gotten everything he wants with the Jets. Going back to last year and certainly this year. Saleh, gone. Hackett, still on the staff even if he doesn't call plays, even if he serves basically no purpose. He's there. Alan Lazard, who, by the way, caught a beautiful Hail Mary. Aaron Rodgers, still the king of the Hail Mary. Can still do that at a high level. Kudos to him. Alan Lazard, by the way, leads the NFL in touchdown catches. So maybe if you're a Jets optimist, maybe it's like, hey, if it still works with Alan Lazard of all people, surely to goodness it'll work with Davante Adams. Oh, sure, the Jets got better. But can we show you what Aaron Rodgers has done in the Jets' 3-game losing streak? Remember after the Jets, by the way, won that game against the Patriots on that Thursday night game when Aaron played great and then turned the ball over, was dicing up the Patriots defense. He said, hey, we got to learn how to win and learn how to dominate. Since that quote, Aaron Rodgers, let's see what he's done. 4 touchdowns, 4 picks, 254 pass yards per game, not even completing 60% of his throws, a pass rating in the low 70s, a QBR of 44 going on 45. And the Jets in that stretch have scored 15 points per game. The only 3 teams that have scored less than that are the Cleveland Browns with the worst quarterback in football, the Dolphins without their quarterback, and the Patriots without an NFL roster. This lack of accountability, and this is who Aaron Rodgers has been. You know what? I was thinking about this today. Aaron Rodgers, in many ways, is who folks think LeBron James is. If you think about it, like the criticism of LeBron, like we're talking, absent the GOAT debate with Jordan. Like, so we're not talking about that. Those that are what I would call LeBron haters. Oh, he's a prima donna. It's never his fault. He runs the team. If LeBron ran the Lakers, Tyler would be the head coach. If LeBron ran the Lakers, DeMar DeRozan would be a Laker. If LeBron ran the Lakers, Klay Thompson would be a Laker. But again, LeBron, it's the Westbrook move. LeBron runs the Lakers, of course. Duh. LeBron's not clutch. No, actually, the numbers say he might be the clutchest player in history. It's Aaron Rodgers, actually, who isn't clutch. Aaron Rodgers has fewer game-winning drives than the likes of Phillip Rivers, Vinny Testaverde, Matt Ryan. I mean, good quarterbacks. In some cases, great. Not better than Aaron Rodgers, and at least in terms of how we view him. Aaron Rodgers is who folks think LeBron James is. Uber talented, but not clutch, kind of a prima donna, and runs the team. Did I not just describe him? And something else, too, that we got to keep in consideration. Because I'm hearing, hey, the kicker, Greg Zuerlein, it was his fault. Yeah, because the kicker for Buffalo was great. Missed an extra point and a field goal. Well, Bryson, Zuerlein missed 2 field goals, so 6 points, 4 points. 6 is more than 4. Yeah, but if you add those to the board, the Bills still win 27-26. So the math does not add up in their favor as well. Listen, if there's one thing that I have learned, I've done this show. Next Monday will be 5 years since we started Carving It Up Live. It's crazy how fast time has flown. And if there's one thing that I've learned, it's don't trust the New York Jets. They always screw it up. And don't ever buy a single effing word that Aaron Rodgers says. I do not run things. I do not run the New York Jets. Something else that I've learned, don't buy into the media narrative that, again, folks have gotten fooled last night. Monday night rather. Aaron Rodgers played really well. Give him credit. Fourth quarter wasn't great, but throughout the game, the Hail Mary played really, really well. Best game of the season, given the circumstances, no question about it. He's still pretty average quarterback going back to 2022. We could show you those numbers today. Shout out to Alfred Parslow Jr., by the way, for making these graphics. He's a Jets fan, so he was probably gritting his teeth as he put those together. So shout out to Alfred. But this is Aaron Rodgers since the 2022 season when he is with Green Bay in a weaker conference with a better coach with better weapons. 35 touchdowns, 17 picks, barely over 200 pass yards per game, barely in the low 60s in terms of completion percentage, pass rating of 89, and he's 3 games under 500. That's who he is. He's an average quarterback. I think at this point, given what Aaron was his peak, we can safely say a watch quarterback. But again, he definitely has no control. Did you see Aaron Rodgers, by the way, on McAfee? Did you see Aaron Rodgers on McAfee yesterday where he's all smug and he kind of looks over his shoulder. He kind of motions his head that way like, come on, Davante, let's do a little flex with our 2-4 team. A 2-4 team, by the way, that is not even as good as last year's Jets. Can we show you the offensive comparison between the Jets through 6 games this year and last year? Left is this year's Jets. The right is last year's Jets. Same points per game. This year's Jets average more yards per game, the exact same yards per play. 1 fewer turnover, 15 more penalties, and a worse record. Folks, they're no different than last year's Jets. We could put lipstick on a pig, still a pig. And that's where the Jets are at right now. The defense didn't have their best day at the office. I'll give them a pass because they played Josh Allen. Now, the Bills didn't have their starting running back, and the Bills just added Amari Cooper, so Buffalo got better. I'm just telling you, you can let Monday Night Football fool you all you want, but what do we know? Divisional games are almost always close. The Cardinals, who got waxed by the Packers, beat San Francisco in San Francisco after getting a kick block. Like, divisional games are often close, come down to the wire. If there's one thing we know about Aaron Rodgers, that when ish gets tough, he's the last guy you want in your corner. Mike Williams can attest to that. And by the way, I'm not even saying Mike Williams is a great player, but could we at least acknowledge that Aaron Rodgers runs every sorry, not we, because we know. Can Aaron Rodgers at least acknowledge Joe Douglas doesn't pull the strings here? I guess he does in an official GM capacity. Aaron pulls the strings in this operation. Davante Adams, Randall Cobb, Alan Lazard, Nathaniel Hackett, multiple offensive linemen. Total coincidence. You're an idiot to think that's, he is the ultimate gaslighter. Now, we're going to be talking about another gaslighter, Jerry Jones, later in the show in about 15 minutes on Carving Up the Context, but this guy is so full of it. It's unbelievable. So full of it. Check the comments here. Patrick, again, to my point, Aaron has no more excuses. He got exactly what he wanted. Green Bay is laughing and enjoying being free from the tower heist tactics of Aaron Rodgers. So Patrick, this is interesting. He says, I'm sure your sister, folks may not know, my sister is a diehard Packers fan. I'm sure your sister is grinning knowing the present and the future is brighter than before. Yes, Patrick, but it's so funny. She was in another room when I was watching the game. I was like, hey, come on in here. Aaron Rodgers was probably about to throw a Hail Mary. And she's like, oh my God. Like she witnessed all the Hail Marys in the past. He completes it to Lazard, and she's like, oh my God, I missed him. I'm like, no. No, you're good now. You're good. And she loves Jordan Love, by the way. Just want to put that out there. But there you go. Jeff, what's up, Bryson? Glad I seen your title. We're going to talk about Tomlin benching Fields, which is ridiculous at this point. I sure hope you agree, bro. The evidence is clear. I'll get to that literally in just a second. Jeff, thank you. Come on, Davante. Let's do a little flex with our 2-4 team. Hey, let's do a flex. I'm doing no better than Zach Wilson with a better O-line around me. Isn't that something, Jeff? Isn't that something? Patrick, Matt LaFleur has been the biggest winner. To transition from Rodgers to Love, hasn't missed a beat. Packers fans can cheer, knowing the headache is the Jets' problem. I got to admit, Brian Gutekunst must be, well, maybe not sipping a pina colada because they're in Green Bay, Wisconsin, but I mean, I guess they could. I mean, it's a town known for its brewery, you know, or a state rather known for its brewery. But I'll tell you what, yeah, you're right, Patrick. The Packers have to be just, man, we got our 4-2 team. We're in the best division of football. Jordan Love just getting better. Our receiving core is the deepest in the NFL. It's almost as if the Jets' shortcomings could have very easily been predicted if you weren't blinded by Aaron Rodgers throwing a pretty football. That's what he's been reduced to at this point. Gorgeous Hail Mary. I give him credit. And I'm not being disingenuous when I say this. I mean, he's disingenuous with basically everything that comes out of his mouth. He throws the prettiest Hail Mary in the history of the NFL. Gives his receivers a chance to come down with it. It's no surprise that Alan Lazard was the guy who caught it, given their, you know, their connection going back to Green Bay. But don't let that blind you. Aaron's a very, very average quarterback for 3 years now. And he's old, and he's off an Achilles, and the Jets coaching staff isn't very good, and they added Davante Adams. Okay, great. I mean, Davante Adams was tearing it up in Vegas. And by the way, I think Davante's still a great player. I want to be clear when I say that. I love Davante. But he has not had great quarterback play since Aaron in 2021, and he ain't getting it moving forward. I mean, I guess it's better than, you know, Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew, but it ain't that much better. The numbers would show you that. I mean, Aaron Rodgers has a worse passer rating in the last 3 years than Geno Smith. Nobody thinks Geno Smith's exactly taking Seattle to the Super Bowl. So let's keep that in perspective. All right, let's transition now to my Steelers. Speaking of keeping things in perspective, it is all I can do to not throw up on the show right now. So I'm a diehard Steelers fan. Many of you know this. And, you know, throughout last season when the Steelers were able to somehow, some way win 10 games, make the playoffs with a great defense, great coaching, and not only abysmal quarterback play, but archaic offensive play calling via Matt Canada, and then once Matt Canada was fired, via Matt Canada's playbook. Canada's probably the worst offensive coordinator I've ever seen in my life other than Nathaniel Hackett. I challenged Mike Tomlin after that season. I said, Coach, you're future first ballot Hall of Famer, no question about it. No losing seasons in your career. Super Bowl title with the Steelers, another Super Bowl appearance. But here's the reality. No playoff wins since the 2016 season. Can you believe that? The Jacksonville Jaguars have won 3 playoff games after the 2016 season. Steelers have had 0. Like, go figure that. How many times the Jaguars picked number 1? How many times the Steelers been inside the top 10? But that's the reality of the situation right now with Pittsburgh, and has been for some time. Is that I wanted to see Mike Tomlin maintain the core principles of what makes Pittsburgh great, toughness, great defense, all these things, while simultaneously adapting late to the party, but you could still change. Anybody can change, adapting to the modern offensive NFL. Now, when he hired Arthur Smith in January, I'm like, okay, this is a sign. Say what you want about Arthur Smith as a head coach. He was not very good in Atlanta. Wasn't Ryan Tannehill like a Pro Bowler when he was with them? Tennessee had their greatest success when Arthur Smith was the OC in Tennessee under Mike Vrabel. So I'm like, okay, I like this. Okay, let's see what we do at quarterback. Do we draft a guy? And then we signed Russell Wilson. And it's like, okay, well, at least he's better than what we had last year, and at least he's really cheap. If this is who we got, and we can't draft anybody because we're too low in the first round to take one of these high-end quarterbacks like a Michael Penix, who I loved, so be it. We'll roll with Russell and see what happens in 2025. But then they trade for Justin Fields. And I'm like, okay, well, you got the vet. Then you got the young-ish guy. I mean, Justin Fields is in year 4, but it's kind of raw. Didn't work so well in Chicago. Bears need to move on in favor of, to me, one of the most talented quarterbacks in the history of the draft, Caleb Williams. Okay, let's see how this works out. Let's see him battle it out. Turns out Russell wins the battle, but loses it out to Justin Fields because of injury. Well, according to reports and according to tape that we have from Steelers practice, Russell Wilson is going to start on Sunday against the New York Jets, and I can't figure out why. We can show you Russell Wilson, Justin Fields' numbers. So Justin Fields through the first 6 games of this year, Russell in his last 6 games last year in Denver. Before you say, well, I mean, it's Denver. It's Sean Payton. Okay, Bo Nix has had his growing pains. Bo Nix played, for a rookie, and given the talent level of the Broncos, pretty solid football. Russell Wilson last 6 games. Justin Fields last 6 games. Fields the better quarterback. Total touchdowns, Russell's got Justin beat. Total turnovers, by the way, Russell only has him beat by 1, 11-10. Fields has 4 less turnovers, total turnovers than Russ. That says in their last 10 games. That should say in their last 6. My apologies. But Russell in his last 6 games, only 7 more yards per game. Fields then beats him out. Last 6 games, completion percentage, passer rating, QBR, and record. Keep in mind that the Pittsburgh Steelers are coming off a game against the Las Vegas Raiders. They scored 30. And if you know, listen, for my fellow Steelers fans out there, 30 is like take a picture of it, with your phone or whatever, and frame that, because that's gonna be the last time you see 30 for a while, given where the Steelers are at in terms of the lack of playmaking ability on the outside and their offensive philosophy in general. But even more than that, to me, what is the thing that I can't quite wrap my arms around with Mike Tomlin deciding to go with Russ over Justin Fields, I can't figure out about this. It's just 2 things. Number 1, the Steelers have one of the worst offensive lines in football. Now, some of that's injury. Zach Frazier, the center, rookie center, who's been playing really good football, he's going to be out for some time with a lower body injury. Okay, well, there goes your center. You've had injuries at guard. Broderick Jones on the right tackle has been a disaster this year. I mean, there was a play against the Raiders, second or third quarter. Broderick Jones I think it was Max Crosby. It might have been Crosby. Go right by him with no resistance. Fields has to take off up the middle. If that's Russell Wilson, he's getting clocked and probably fumbles, because Justin Fields gives you that mobility. But to me, the paramount, the biggest reason I cannot figure out why Tomlin's making this move, I don't know if Justin Fields is going to be the long-term answer in Pittsburgh. Matter of fact, I'm about 80% he's probably not going to be. I'm about 80%. I'd rather take my chance on a younger quarterback, fresh out of college, see what he's got. A good situation around him. Let's draft a quarterback. Let's see if we can get our franchise guy. But there's a chance Fields could be. He's played well this year, 10-2 touchdown to turnover ratio. That's good. He's completed almost 70% of his passes. That's good. The Steelers are 4-2. That's good. I don't know if Fields is going to be the long-term answer, but I know Russell isn't. Russell Wilson's in his 13th year, in the National Football League. He's in his mid going into late 30s. Russell Wilson, I talk about Aaron Rodgers, hasn't been good since 2021. Well, guess what? Russell Wilson hasn't been good since 2020. Remember he had that start, I think the Seahawks might have started like 3-0, 5-0, something like that. Russell's put up crazy numbers. Then he falters at the end of that year, 2020. In 2020, wasn't very good at all. Had some injuries in 21. Was maybe the worst quarterback in football in 22. Fine last year with Sean Payton, but a lot of that's Sean Payton and Russell. Some of those numbers are a bit misleading because Russell refused to take shots down the field because he was afraid to throw picks. With a bad Steelers O-line, shouldn't you in a quarterback room that's, let's be honest, Russell Fields kind of neck and neck, wouldn't you want to go with the more mobile guy? For the long-term prospects of the franchise, wouldn't you want to go with Justin Fields? If nothing else, because this is a suggestion I had prior to Dak Prescott breaking my heart and signing a long-term extension with Dallas. I was, as a Steelers fan and a Dak fan, I'm like, this is a match made in heaven. Dak gets to go to a football-first franchise with a great coach, great ownership, great GM. Here we go. Well, here we don't go because Dak stayed in Dallas and my dreams were blown up into smithereens. But my suggestion at that time was, hey, Russell's going to walk. He's going to be a free agent. You bring Justin Fields back. You sign Dak Prescott to a gigantic contract, and either Justin Fields is your backup or you trade him and get good compensation. I think the second part of that could still be in the air. You could still know Justin Fields. You absolutely could. If Justin Fields is able to, I say rebuild his reputation as if he was like this locker room problem. He wasn't in Chicago, but rebuild his on-field reputation in the sense that, hey, if you give Justin Fields a good, solid, foundational situation, he can be good. He could be a productive player through the first 6 games, 10 total touchdowns, 2 turnovers total. He could be productive. He can help you win games against the Colts in week 4, one of the Steelers' 2 losses. That was the rare bad performance by the Steelers defense where Justin Fields almost got you back into that and winning it with his arm, with his legs. Russell can't do it with his legs. I'm not sure he can do it with a deep ball anymore. And that was kind of Russell's greatest strength. Like, man, he can sling. He's got a pretty deep ball. Well, he doesn't throw it anymore. He's scared to throw it. And by the way, the Steelers' offensive philosophy, I don't know if it would change with Russell, maybe, but they don't really take shots down the field. That's just not, I wish they would, but they don't. Maybe they'll give Russell a shot, But to give Russell an opportunity to take shots deep, he's got to get protection, which he most of the time won't get because the Steelers' offensive line isn't very good. Push comes to shove, Justin Fields can worst case scenario, get out of there and get you a yard or two and at least make it a positive play, not lose 7 yards on a sack. So from a situational perspective, it doesn't make sense. From a personnel standpoint, it doesn't make sense. And for a long-term future standpoint, it doesn't make a lot of sense for the Steelers to make this move. All I can figure, and this is all I can think of. Listen, and again, I'm not acting like Justin Fields has lit the world on fire. He's played well. He hasn't been great. He hasn't been bad. Hasn't been bad enough to where I say, oh my gosh, you got to sit in the offense, can't do anything. He's been pretty good. Steelers scored 30 points against the Raiders on Sunday. Is that, and Tomlin I think if I remember correctly, Tomlin actually might have alluded to this in March when Russell signed in free agency, that he's our starter. When Russell, by the way, remember, this was before Justin Fields was traded there, which I think happened like later that week. Tomlin said, Russell's our starter. I could see a scenario, and I don't want to paint it out as if Russell's a bad guy. I've been very critical of Russell Wilson in the past, folks. I think he's a good guy. I mean, the other day, I think it was yesterday before, he did what he always did in Seattle, visited the Children's Hospital. Russell's a good dude. I have nothing against him personally. As a leader of a football team, I got a lot of concerns. Ask basically all of his teammates in Seattle. I could see Russell Wilson going to ownership, maybe going to Omar Khan, maybe going to Mike Tomlin himself, and saying, I'm going to maybe make this ugly and force a trade out of here if you don't start me. I could very well see that happening, and him holding out over Tomlin said, hey, you said I was going to be the starter. Maybe the owner, maybe Rooney, Omar Khan, the GM, made him that promise in advance. And he kind of held that over Tomlin's head. Again, I have no reporting on this. This is just all I'm trying to figure out why and how that this possibly occurred and happened. And Tomlin's like, well, the Steelers, the ultimate no-drama franchise, other than with wide receivers, oddly. Give an opportunity. And what I think is going to happen over the course of the rest of this year is, I don't know how Russell Wilson's going to play with the Jets. I know the Jets have a great defense. At least they have been, obviously this year. I don't know if the Steelers are just going to win that game. I'm leaning Steelers because it's TJ Watt against Aaron Rodgers. That is, as Shaq would say, barbecue chicken for TJ Watt. That's a great matchup against that bad offensive line for the Jets. But it looks like it's going to be a seesaw the rest of the season, and you come out of this year feeling, what do we do? By the way, if Russell plays poorly, you drop a couple games, you know what you do? You put Fields in for the toughest part of your schedule. You got the Bengals twice, you got Baltimore twice, you got Kansas City. I mean, there's the Steelers last, whatever it is, 7, 8, 9 games, brutal stretch. Like that was, I talked about all offseason. It is paramount. If the Steelers want to do anything this year, they got to knock out some of these New York Giants, New York Jets, Colts. They lost the Colts, but you got to beat these teams. You steal a game against the Chargers and against Atlanta. You got to win these early season matchups. You got to beat Denver when you have a quarterback advantage and a coach advantage. Slight, I love Peyton Tomlin's a better coach. You got to knock these games out early in the season so you give yourself extra leeway for later in the season. You disrupt the offense. I don't get it. I really, really don't. And listen, Maybe Tomlin's just seeing what he's got. Maybe him and Omar Khan are like, hey, we're going to entertain these guys as potential trade options and then draft somebody in 2025. I'm not really sure what the plan is. Like my thing was, if God forbid Justin Fields goes down or plays poorly, Russell's a good insurance option. I never said Russell couldn't play. It just disrupts a lot of things. And long term, it doesn't make a lot of sense. I don't get why the Steelers did this. I genuinely don't. And it made me a lot less optimistic. With the game on Sunday, even though the Steelers are going to win. Jeff is in the comments. He says, what? Frazier's hurt. Sorry to hear that. He was one of my favorite players in this year's draft class. Best rookie center so far. No question. And by the way, I've been critical of Frazier this year in the sense that he and Fields had some bad exchanges with the snaps going back to the preseason. But other than that, you can make a case the Steelers' best offensive lineman. So that's a big loss. So, by the way, you lose your best offensive lineman. Let's insert our old, less mobile quarterback who has no experience in game situations with the offense. I'm telling you, I'm trying to figure out what I don't get it. I really don't. See, there you go, Patrick. There, I appreciate that. He at least he used the he combined the two. Patrick combined Russell's, I guess, revamped catchphrase, at least the way Patrick saw it, and then added the new god-awful catchphrase that Russell came up with that he told Melissa Stark a couple weeks ago. Patrick, Steelers Nation, let's weld and win the 7th. Mr. Unlimited has arrived on schedule. Maybe y'all can trade for your guy Tiki Sunshine Lawrence in the future. I mean, listen, I'll definitely take him over Russell Wilson. Listen, I mean, Justin Fields been more productive, but I wouldn't be mad if we did that. The only thing is the contract is not ideal, but I wouldn't be pissed. Patrick. He says, if you want to put the Iowa Hawkeyes and the Pittsburgh Steelers on the field, it's identical playing styles. Whoever can score 20 points wins. Same uniform colors, the whole bit. Oh, yeah. I watch Iowa. I'm like, oh, my gosh. I appreciate it. Jeff says you're killing with this take. Long term, it makes 0 sense. And he says T-Law isn't even better than Fields. Well, listen, I like him better as a thrower of the football. As a deep ball thrower, I'll take Fields. Fields the better deep ball thrower, and he's more mobile. I just trust Trevor's body more. I've seen Trevor be successful in adverse circumstances back in 2022. I've taken my bullets on Trevor Lawrence this season, and rightfully so. But Baker Mayfield got a second and third opportunity, and Baker is leading the NFL in touchdown passes, and on some MVP ballots is the front runner. I'm willing to give Trevor Lawrence more time. I mean, maybe not as good as I thought he'd be. More time. I'm willing to do that. I just don't get why the Steelers made this move. This had to have been a behind-the-scenes sort of, and I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist. I don't want to sound like Aaron Rodgers right now, but there had to be something going on behind the scenes for this to occur. There had to have been. All right. We'll be back. We'll be back in 1 minute to do Carving Up the Context on Jerry Jones. This should be lively and fun. Carving Up the Context back in 1 minute on Carving It Up Live. Welcome back, everybody. We got Carving Up the Context. This is a segment we do every single show on Wednesday, or every single Wednesday show, rather, at around 6:30 Eastern time. Basically, take a topic, go deeper into it. The Dallas Cowboys have been a frequent visitor on this segment, Carving Up the Context, and today is no exception. Jerry Jones, let's say, made some interesting comments that we'll obviously play the audio for in the show. So, as the head coach of the Colorado Buffaloes, prime time, Deion Sanders says, "Give me my theme music." On this week's edition of Carving Up the Context, we're going to be talking about Jerry Jones, Gerald Wayne Jones, the owner / general manager of the Dallas Cowboys, dating back to 1989. Gosh darn it. Was it George H.W. Bush was president? Man, it's been a minute. It's been an eternity for a lot of Cowboys fans. He was on the radio yesterday in Dallas on their local flagship station that carries Cowboys games as well as Cowboys commentary throughout the course of the week. And he always does this, as we know, radio interview, and you often get some weird folksy quote or comment, and we didn't get that. Jerry Jones came in and was well, he had a lot to say. Let's just show you what he said.
Your job isn't to let me go over all the reasons that I did something and I'm sorry that I did it. That's not your job.
Well, my job is to ask
why.
Get
a job, or I'll get somebody else to ask these questions, man.
Jerry, we're trying to figure out why the team is.
I'm not kidding you. I'm not kidding you. you're not going to figure out what the team is doing right or wrong. If you are, or any 5 or 10 like you, you need to come to this meeting I'm going to today. There are 32 teams here. You're geniuses.
Jerry,
Okay? Y'all really think you're going to sit here with a microphone and tell me all of the things that I've done wrong and without going over the rights?
What rights? Please do tell, Jerry. What have you done? Forget this past offseason, which we'll get into. What have you done in 30 years that folks would consider? Oh, good call there, Jerry. Yeah, we can go back to the 1994, or actually 1994 offseason when after back-to-back Super Bowls, you fired a Hall of Fame head coach in his prime with the Cowboys in the midst of their prime, a dynasty, Jimmy Johnson, because of a dispute over power over personnel. Can you imagine? I use this all the time, but I'll certainly use it today. Can you imagine a press conference? The Hunt family, Brett Veach, and Andy Reid in the room, and Andy Reid saying, it's been fun. Got a couple Super Bowls back to back, 3 in total, obviously. In the case of Reid, we decided it was time to move on. We would say, what the hell happened with the Kansas City Chiefs? What is something happened? There was a clear power struggle, and they just fired one of the greatest coaches in the history of the National Football League. I argue top 5 ever. I think Reid's awesome. We clown the organization for doing that, and we clown Dallas. Right moves. Jerry Jones made a lot of right moves over the years. Kind of like in 2016. Remember that? Dak Prescott, 4th-round draft pick out of Mississippi State, pick number 135. And Tony Romo goes down, preseason game. Tony Romo had a history of injuries, and Dak Prescott replaced him and shocks everybody. Yeah, listen, I'm a lifelong Dak fan going back to his days in college. I didn't see that coming. I mean, Dak has an unbelievable rookie year, and everybody talks about, well, he had this great offensive line and this great team. What great team? The same Cowboys team in the 5 years prior gone 46-50. That team. But Dak's lighting the world on fire. Jerry Jones still, again, what Mike Tomlin did yesterday on crack cocaine. This is what Jerry Jones did in 2016. Well, Tony is available if it is time to put Tony Romo in and replace Dak Prescott. Jason Garrett endorsed Dak as his quarterback, the head coach. You think the head coach should have the final say. Not the case in Dallas. Cowboys teammates endorsed Dak. Tony Romo himself. It took Tony to go in front of the media and give a de facto retirement presser to say, Dak's the quarterback. Dak's earned the right to be our quarterback moving forward. Jerry, even up until the end of that rookie year when Dak was about to win the darn Rookie of the Year award and lead the Cowboys to the 1 seed, Jerry still couldn't let go of Tony Romo. That was the right decision, right? Definitely the right decision. Kind of like it was to give Ezekiel Elliott the largest contract in the history of the running back position at the time. Was that the right decision? And like it was paying Jalen Smith, was that a right decision too? Kind of like it was to have for Jason Garrett to have not 1, not 2, but 3 straight 8-8, 8-8, 8-8 seasons. And you still keep him, you still retain him. And after playoff disappointment or falling short of a playoff appearance, you still keep him up until his contract runs out. Kind of like with Mike McCarthy. Despite a losing season in 2020 and 3 consecutive very disappointing playoff appearances, you kept him. Kind of like how this offseason. All in. Going to go all in. All in to the Dallas Cowboys. Eric Kendricks re-signed the long snapper. All in. And Stephen Jones later clarified, well, what he actually meant was all in on keeping our guys. Then why do you sign him in, like, I don't know, March, when free agency opened, when the offseason commenced? Instead of CeeDee Lamb weeks before the season opener, so that he built no rapport with Dak Prescott. Now, CeeDee Lamb, by the way, is top 5 in receiving yards, but it does not look like the same connection that CeeDee and Dak had last year, where they were, in my view, the most prolific quarterback-receiver duo in football in 2023. So Dak's not able to work out with this guy. CeeDee's not able to work with his guy. And you wait till literally hours on game day, week 1, hours before kickoff against the Cleveland Browns, to sign Dak to a contract that you could have gotten him for far less for. Jared Goff got paid, right? Trevor Lawrence got the bag, and Tua Tagovailoa got the bag. A lot of quarterbacks got paid lucrative money. Could have paid Dak earlier. gotten him for more of a discount, been able to spread his money out so that you could get set free agents. Oh, yeah. Speaking of free agents, the Cowboys last year didn't have a great running game. Not near as bad as this year, but they couldn't run the football as well as they would have liked to. Running backs. Gosh, who could... Wait a second. Derrick Henry's on the market. Derrick Henry, who's a 2,000-yard potential guy. Derrick Henry, who's in my opinion at least, a first-bout Hall of Famer in the Hall of Fame, Canton, Ohio. We don't even have to trade for him. We can just sign. They didn't sign Derrick Henry. The Cowboys, very limited wide receiving room outside of CeeDee Lamb. I have been preaching that since 2022. The Cowboys take one wide receiver in the NFL draft, and they take him in late rounds. And they don't sign one of note in free agency. He let his offensive line get worse with Tyron Smith and Tyler Biotish walking out the back door. He let his defense get worse with Dorrance Armstrong and Stephon Gilmore walking out the back door. He hired Mike Zimmer, probably a good thing at this. That probably was a good decision, to a one-year deal because Zimmer's going to be gone after this year because he's been done a disastrous job at this defense. Jerry Jones wants the credit when things go well, but he doesn't want the blame. And by the way, what I think is interesting is some folks may push back and say, well, a few weeks ago, and maybe some Cowboys fans who were like really in the know and listen to Jerry's interviews would say, well, time out, Bryson. 2-3 weeks ago, Jerry Jones went on this same radio show and said, hey, I'll take the blame when it goes wrong. I am willing to take the blame when stuff doesn't. Here's what I think went behind that. Because Jerry Jones did say that on this radio show. I think what went into that is he didn't think it'd get this bad. Jerry Jones been blown out before. Now, not like this, but Jerry Jones got blown out. By the way, the previous 3 games, Dak did all he could in the fourth quarter to make it close against Baltimore. Baltimore smoked him in that game. The Saints smoked him in Jerry World, and everybody and their mama know what the Packers did to Dallas in Jerry World in that playoff game. It was the fact, I think, 2 things with the Detroit Lions and what they did to Dallas that made Jerry this angry. Number 1, not only did Detroit dominate Dallas, they didn't even look like they were trying that hard, and they dominated Dallas. They were clowning the Cowboys. I've never seen this in my life. Lining up offensive linemen wide. I've never seen that in my life. I think I counted 3 plays that were run specifically for offensive linemen. But number 2, and maybe more importantly, why Jerry Jones is angry? Dan Campbell has ties to the Dallas Cowboys. He has ties there. And Jerry even alluded to that in his post-game presser on Sunday night. And he let that slip through his fingers, kind of like he let Sean Payton, who was on Bill Parcells' coaching staff back in the day, slip through his fingers as well. He had a Hall of Fame coach in Payton and a guy who's done a great job in Detroit of all places. Both slipped through his fingers as he's gone with, in that time span, Wade Phillips and Jason Garrett and Mike McCarthy. All of them fine. None of them are bad head coaches, but none of them are going to take the Cowboys to the Super Bowl for crying out loud. This is a clown move by, as I always say, an egomaniacal owner who has no interest in winning the way you win in the NFL. If Jerry Jones, who by the way is an abysmal, I cannot emphasize this enough, as bad of an eye for talent as any human being who runs football operations in this league, shows with the Cowboys roster, Jerry will do whatever he has to do within what he's comfortable with, which these days, it's just sitting on his hands, letting the Cowboys lead every show in the country, which, by the way, I think that's why Dak Prescott didn't get paid in the long run. Because we saw he ended up getting paid. My thing was, he still doesn't believe in Dak. It's like, no, he got paid. So evidently he did believe in Dak enough to give him the biggest contract ever. Jerry just like getting talked about. All press is good press in his mind. That's why I love the Thanksgiving game. Remember what he said? I've never forgotten this. Remember when the Cowboys throttled, a 12-win Cowboys team throttled a bad 4-win Washington Commanders team quarterbacked by Sam Howell? Remember Jerry said, I haven't had nights like this in my entire career as the Dallas Cowboys, even going back to the Super Bowl days. Jerry was just over the moon in a blowout win in November against the Washington Commanders. Highest rated game of the regular season, as it always is, the Thanksgiving game in Dallas, Texas. It's not about winning for Jerry Jones, at least without him getting the credit. So for this week's edition of Carving Up the Context, that radio interview told you everything you need to know. Jerry's in it to get Jerry some credit. Jerry's got this need, as most do, but he channels it in a really screwed up way. He's 82 years old. He's got to prove himself to the rest of the NFL world. Hey, I'm still that deal-making businessman who bought the day. And he alluded to that in the interview. I was an idiot. This is what Jerry said verbatim. I was an idiot when I bought the Dallas Cowboys in 1989. I didn't have the money to do it. Look how that's worked out. That was 35 years ago, Jerry. It's a different time. It's a different NFL's a different culture. And that comparing buying a team to making personnel decisions is night and day. It's apples to oranges. Again, this week's edition of Carving with the Context, it ain't getting any better with the Cowboys and Jerry Jones. As long as that guy's running the show, it ain't getting any better. And I've heard some Cowboys fans say, hey, if this is a good thing for the Cowboys, if they would just keep getting blown out and have like a 5-win season, it'd be a disaster. Maybe, just maybe, Jerry, no, he won't. No, he won't. This isn't the Democrats with Joe Biden. Joe Biden has that disastrous debate, obviously preceded by a number of, let's call them age-related snafus. And the Democrats, Nancy Pelosi, are like, yeah, get him out of here. We don't have a chance to win with this guy. And he left. Wish Republicans would have done that. Different story for another day. That ain't Jerry Jones. Biden's been in power for 4 years. Then it's over. A president can only be in power for 8 years. Jerry's been in power for 35. It's pretty incredible to watch. I'm not gonna lie. I always say I feel bad for Cowboys fans in large part because I was one. And this man is the reason I dipped and jumped ship from this franchise. It's probably why I chose the Steelers. Matter of fact, it is why I chose the Steelers, because of the organizational stability, because the owners own, the GM's GM, the coaches coach, the players play. What a concept. Everybody, Bill Belichick said it best, right? Do your job. Jeff, I'll get someone else to ask these questions, man. I'm not kidding. Had me dying. Jerry, what you're wrong about is that it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see what you did wrong this offseason. Actually, is a huge elephant in the room. You don't even have a running back even capable on the roster to Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard alone has more rushing yards than the entire Cowboys running back room, and I'm pretty sure Derrick Henry didn't even receive a call from you. He wanted to play there. He's the best back in the NFL right now. And Jeff, Bryson, that's where I have to push back a little. Jerry and the Cowboys have one of the best eyes for talent in the league. They have drafted some stars. Mozzie Smith is the only recent bust I can think of. Okay, here's what I would say, and I wish I had the graphics from Monday's show. I guess they're in the clip from Monday's opening segment, which is on YouTube now. Please feel free to check it out. But I compared Dallas and Detroit's drafts the last 3 years, and it's not even close. Now, some of that is just Brad Holmes being maybe the best GM in football. Crushing these picks. He's from the Rams, so maybe we shouldn't be that shocked. The Rams are a well-run franchise. That guy has been incredible. And you look at Dallas's recent draft picks, like Micah Parsons, that hit. Deron Bland, you start going after that. Do I have the list on my... Matter of fact, I probably still have my notes. I don't have the graphic for the show today. I wish I could say I did. Okay, the Cowboys, I listed their best 8 draft picks since 2021. In no particular order. This is just the years they were drafted. Micah Parsons, that hit. Oso Odigizua, pretty good. Tyler Smith, depends on the Sunday. Jalen Tolbert would be a 5 with the Green Bay Packers. Jake Ferguson, he's fine. Deron Bland, ball hawk, but can get burned over the top. He's a bit of a gambler. Damone Clark, Damarian Overshown, he's fast. That's about all I can say. Meanwhile, Detroit's best 8 draft picks. Penei Sewell, best right tackle in football. Amon-Ra St. Brown, top 10 receiver. Aiden Hutchinson, God bless him, knock on wood for him, healing from the injury. One of the 5 best pass rushers in the game. Jamison Williams, speedster receiver of the top. Kirby Joseph, Pro Football Focus, loves him, one of the highest graded safeties in football. Jahmyr Gibbs, poor man's Alvin Kamara, and that's not a shot. Jahmyr Gibbs can play at a high level. Sam Laporta, top 10 tight end. Brian Branch, 2 interceptions off Dak Prescott, ball hawking safety. Detroit has done incredible with their picks. By the way, so does San Francisco and Baltimore and Kansas City. To a lesser degree, Pittsburgh. You're going to see a lot. I'm about to do Bryce's best 10. A lot of the teams, Houston. A lot of the teams on my list have hit on a lot of draft picks. Listen, you should be aggressive in free agency. I just ripped Jerry for doing it. You got to go out and get Derrick Henry. You got to go out and get a guy, or at least trade for a DeAndre Hopkins, for a Davante Adams, at least be in the running. Jerry Jones, by the way, also said, we're not going to be in the trade market. Well, shocker. How long has it been since that happened? Amari Cooper? Patrick. As I stated in my newest article, Cowboys fans should be emotionally awakened by what's transpired. I don't think it's giving Cowboys fans enough credit. I think they've been aware. There was a poll. Listen, and I don't believe in polls. Like, I hate political polls with a passion. I don't care who it's leaning for. I despise political polls. Maybe I'll talk about that in a future, carving up the context. I hate polls. That said, I think it was The Athletic polled every NFL fan base. And it was like, which fan base is the most optimistic about their team winning a Super Bowl in the next 5 years? Dallas fans were last. Even Cowboys fans, Stephen A. Smith, shout out Stephen A., but he's, made a living. Oh, Cowboys fans are delusional. Cowboys fans like, yeah, we got no shot. Yeah, Jerry Jones, you kidding me? We're not winning the Super Bowl in the next 5 years. I think Cowboys fans are more aware than ever. Jeff, the Lions haven't drafted a player as good as CeeDee Lamb maybe ever. I don't know. Barry Sanders, Calvin Johnson come to mind. I don't know. Those are like two of the greatest. Me personally, I think Barry Sanders is the greatest running back ever. And Calvin Johnson was as physically dominant a receiver as we've ever seen. So I wouldn't go that far, Jeff. And he says, Bryson, but doesn't feel like every offensive line the Cowboys pick, they're great at some point. Well, Tyler Smith's been good. Some Sundays he's great. Some days he's abysmal. I didn't think he had the greatest performance. Actually, he was fine against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh didn't get a ton of pressure up the middle. Patrick, and then we'll move on to Bryce's best 10. I'm still trying to figure out what, still trying to figure out what him going to the owners' meeting had to do with Dallas' struggles. If that were me in the booth, I'm not backing down. Well, listen, I don't think the radio host backed down. Jerry just kept interjecting. The radio hosts in Dallas were like, hey, Jerry, we're just asking a question. And that to me too, if I can, last point I'll make before I move on, that to me is the ultimate mark of a narcissist. Is, again, going back to, you want the credit and things are going well. You don't want the blame when it's not going well, is to go so far as to say, hey, I don't like the questions that you're asking, even though they're perfectly legitimate questions that any media member worth their salt would ask, and say, hey, I'll just get somebody else to ask the questions that I want. Is that not screaming desperation and insecurity or what? Like, come on. Shout out to the guys the guys on 105 The Fan. What was it, 105.3? I forget. I should have known the radio station in advance in Dallas. But shout out to those guys. They didn't back down. Kudos to them. But that was, agree, Patrick. That was a clown move by Jerry. But he's made a lot of those. Give me credit when I make the right decisions. Which ones? Show me, Jerry. Let's see what we got. Trading for Deion Sanders, or signing Deion Sanders, wasn't that during the Clinton administration? Come on now. I wasn't even a thought in my parents' head yet when that happened. All right. Bryce's best 10. It's also a segment we do every Wednesday. I rate my top 10 blank. It can be anything, but obviously, with this being the NFL season, it's a prime opportunity to rank my top 10 teams in the NFL. So let's go and get the back. Best 10 for weeks. All right, we will start at number 10, the 10th best let's restart that. The 10th best team in the National Football League, back on Bryce's best 10 after a 1-week absence. It is the San Francisco 49ers. The Niners are the 10th best team in the National Football League, and here is why. So when you talk about San Francisco, you got to keep this in consideration, right? I would not put any other team that is currently 3-3 on this list unless they have the talent that this Niners team has. Fred Warner, along with TJ Watt, the two best defensive players in football. To me, it's a race between those two. We're in week 7. We're going into week 7. There's a long way to go. We're not even the halfway point. But those two, Fred Warner's played unbelievable football. Again, the Niners dealt with a ton of injuries. I'll give them credit for being able to survive that. Dre Greenlaw out. My man Talanoa Hufanga continues to deal with injuries. Hopefully he can get back sooner rather than later. But this Niners offense, listen, when they are, and I don't mean this as a shot, when they're leading, forget about it. You are cooked. Again, the Cardinals game being the exception to that rule. But when Brock Purdy's got a roll, when that Niners run game, Kyle Shanahan's dialing up all these plays, and they're healthy with George Kittle, with guys like this, Brandon Ayuk, starting to disastrous early this season, slowly but surely starting to work his way back in the lineup. I love Jawan Jennings. Listen, this Niners offensive line, it's not great. I think it's on a similar level to it was last year, and they got to the Super Bowl last year, so it's not too big of a hindrance. Otherwise, they could have won it against Patrick Mahomes a year ago. So love everything about the Niners. I don't think they have the best roster in the league anymore. That's coming later in the segment. To me, they're absolutely top 3, bar none, no question about it. The Niners are the 10th best team in the National Football League. At number 9, they haven't been on Bryce's best 10 since September. Welcome back at number 9. It is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Bucs are the 9th best team in the National Football League, and here is why. So, I don't know, Tampa Bay just dropped 51 on the New Orleans Saints, which, again, we talked about earlier in the show with the New York Jets. Division games are close. Divisional games, it doesn't matter the talent level, they're always kind of tight. I mean, do we think the Indianapolis Colts are on the same level as the Houston Texans? Of course not. But they took them to the wire, could have easily beaten them with Anthony Richardson, who struggles to throw the football. In the case of the Tampa Bay Bucs, going into New Orleans, Baker threw a ton of picks in the first half, steady in the second half. I mean, if you think about it with the Bucs, if Atlanta doesn't get a playoff in the fourth quarter of that Thursday night game 2 weeks ago, Tampa Bay's 5-1, and we're having a conversation. Hey, are they maybe the best team in the NFC? We having that conversation. This is a loaded Bucs offense. Baker Mayfield leading the NFL in touchdown passes with 15 to be exact. Todd Bowles, good defensive coach. Don't know if I trust this defense in the long run. That's why they're at number 9 and not higher. But I really like what Tampa Bay's done. I thought the loss of Dave Canales to the Panthers would really hurt this team. Thus far, they almost look better. Tampa Bay Buccaneers are the 9th best team in the National Football League. Staying in the division, and this is going to be a mad dash to the finish between these two teams. At number 8 in the NFC South, it is the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons, up 1 spot from last week, are the 8th best team in the National Football League, and here is why. So, again, somewhat close game with Carolina in that first half, but the defense was able to make plays in the second half, pull away. Kirk Cousins didn't play his best game. That's okay, because Atlanta has maybe the best running back tandem in football. Second best to Montgomery and Gibbs. Tyler Algier, Bijan Robinson. Bijan, I believe, had a couple touchdowns. Algier led them in rushing. They're starting to get Kyle Pitts more involved. I've loved Drake London since his days at USC. I think he's a very, very talented weapon. You're seeing this Falcons offense, right? They had a bad opening game against my Steelers. A lot of teams do. The Steelers are maybe the best defense in football. This team has found their rhythm, found their stride. If they continue to establish this running game behind this great offensive line with those weapons, this Falcons team, they're the 2 seed right now in the NFC. Like, they're a very dangerous team for weeks to come throughout the course of the season. The Falcons are the 8th best team in the National Football League. At number 7, dropping 1 spot from last week, despite a win, by the way, it is a team I love this year, the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers are the 7th best team in the National Football League, and here's why. So again, it's not going to look pretty with this team. It's just, we've got to come to that realization. It's, in a different way, a little similar to Pittsburgh. And now Pittsburgh's not on this list, and they did beat the Chargers. I get that. Herbert was injured in that game, and Herbert's a better quarterback than Justin Fields. We all know that. But Justin Herbert looked healthier, played pretty well. He was able to hit some guys out of the backfield, take what the defense gives him. Keep in mind, the Denver Broncos have a tremendous defense this year. Chargers go in, score 23 with Jim Harbaugh having some sort of medical situation. Prayers to him. Hopefully he's okay early in that game. It's a well-coached team. There's few squads in the league this year that know exactly what they want to do on a week-to-week basis. Chargers know. They want to be physical on offense, physical on defense. Again, making life hard for a rookie quarterback in Bo Nix. They looked good coming out of the bye. Didn't love their defensive performance in the second half, particularly the fourth quarter, but they built enough of the lead to kind of sustain it throughout the course of that game. And again, divisional games tend to be closer than otherwise. So I love the Chargers. I love the organizational structure. Harbaugh's great. So is Herbert. They may add a receiver at the deadline. Now, Cooper's gone, so is Davante Adams, but I could see the Chargers maybe adding a guy at the trade deadline this year to try and kind of bolster that passing attack. But the run game is insanely great. Offensive line, best tackle duo in the league. This will be a hard Chargers team to beat on a given Sunday when they're healthy. That is why they're the 7th best team in the National Football League. At number 6, also they're up a spot. They replaced the Chargers. These two teams swapped spots from a week ago. It is the Green Bay Packers. The Packers are the 6th best team in the National Football League, and here's why. So spoiler alert, the first of 3 NFC North teams on this list is Green Bay. Jordan Love's officially found his stride. With unbelievable 4 touchdowns passing. By the way, 4 touchdowns passing for Jordan Love at Lambeau in back-to-back home games. He's the first quarterback to do that since the great Brett Favre. Jordan Love's been playing exceptional football. I know there was a drama with Romeo Doubs. We understand that and how that goes, but he kind of bailed Jordan Love out. Well, I thought was a very reckless throw, just kind of threw a pop-up near the goal line. Romeo Doubs adjusted to it, came down with it, and it was emblematic of what the Packers did to the Cardinals. Quietly, Green Bay's defense with the Minnesota Vikings game, notwithstanding, has been quite good. Xavier McKinney picking every game this year. He's been excellent. This is a Packers offense that's got, in my view, the deepest wide receiving core in professional football. We know Green Bay always has great offensive lines. We know they have a great running game with Josh Jacobs, and Matt LaFleur has done an unbelievable job with this offense. Not much not to like about Green Bay. I just don't know if their youth and inexperience, if that's going to be something that they can overcome once we get to January with experienced teams like San Francisco, like a Detroit Lions team. So the Packers right now, the 6th best team in the National Football League. At number 5, after last week's win, it is the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens are the 5th best team in the National Football League, and here's why. An argument can be made. You can make the case. Number 1 and number 2 for MVP this year, Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry. Both guys have been unreal this season. Okay, Lamar Jackson, 10 touchdown passes on the year, one of the best quarterbacks in football in terms of passer rating. How about Derrick Henry? Derrick Henry's first in basically everything: rush touchdowns, rush yards, rush attempts. He's been the bell cow, the identity of this Ravens offense. Again, kind of figure out, how do we use Derrick Henry on a consistent basis? How do we get the most out of him? And they kind of struggle with that against the Chiefs, against the Raiders to start this year. Once they got him in that I formation, Lamar Jackson turn around, hand it to number 22. He's gonna do some real damage. Derrick Henry's the best back in football still, somehow, at this advanced age and stage of his career in year 9. Lamar Jackson playing exceptional football as throwing it from the pocket, and that was always a thing with Lamar that I never understood. He's a bad thrower from the pocket. He's not as good as a Mahomes or a Burrow, or C.J. Stroud. He can still sling it from the pocket, and he's doing a good of a job as ever this year. Mark Andrews finally caught a touchdown pass. The only reason, despite a 4-game winning streak, why I don't have the Ravens higher, I still don't trust that defense. Despite the loss, Jaden Daniels played really well in that game. We know Jaden Daniels was carded with a lot of defenses. Don't particularly trust this Ravens defense. That is why the Ravens are at number 5. Stay at number 5 this week on Bryce's Best 10. At number 4, staying where they're at as well, it is the Houston Texans. The Texans are the 4th best team in the National Football League, and here's why. The only reason I didn't have them jumping Minnesota, who didn't play this week, obviously, and again, a little bit of spoiler, who's next, is a simple fact of this. Drake May, rookie debut, and props to Drake May. I thought he played really well given the fact that it was his debut, given what he has around him in New England. And so with that said, Houston is top 5 virtually across the board entering this game defensively in all the major categories. And Drake May threw 3 touchdowns on your defense. Now, again, it's a home game, 1 o'clock window. I mean, it's not like a primetime matchup where Drake May is going toe-to-toe with C.J. Stroud, who, by the way, he's also in the MVP discussion. Stroud's been insane this year. Joe Mixon has been the key to unlocking this Texans offense, who's 5-1. D'Amico Ryan's done an unbelievable job. Again, similar to Green Bay, these are very similar football teams, right? We love the young quarterbacks. They have very promising futures. Wide receiving cores are excellent. Running game, defense. I like Houston's defense more than Green Bay's. It's the youth and experience. Will that hurt them in the playoffs? I do struggle with that a little bit with Houston. That is why the Texans, again, great offensive performance. Didn't love what I saw from them defensively, particularly against a rookie quarterback making his debut. So the Texans stay with that as the 4th best team in the National Football League. I already spoiled number 3, so I'll go and give it to you. Number 3, it is the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings are the 3rd best team in the National Football League, and here's why. So they didn't play this week. They were on a bye. Have a massive game. Oh my goodness. Can you believe this? We got Vikings and we got the Detroit Lions next week. How that's in the 1 o'clock, 1 p.m. Eastern time window, I don't know. There's some great games in week 7 in the NFL, but to Minnesota, top 6, only team in the NFL, top 6 in terms of points scored, or scoring offense and scoring defense. Sam Darnold's played exceptional football. Again, we saw signs of it against the Jets. The old Sam Darnold, could that come back out to hurt the Vikings? I still love their running game if Aaron Jones is back healthy and ready to go, which we're hoping he is. Justin Jefferson is still the best receiver in football, in my view. Addison, Hawkinson should be coming back healthy. This defense is insane. Stephon Gilmore's been a great addition. He obviously had the game-ending pick off of Aaron Rodgers in London a couple of weeks ago. There's not much not to like about this Vikings team. If they had a quarterback that I consider around that top, if they had Jared Goff, for example, and a team I'm about to get to next, I'd be like, oh, they're the best team in football. I might have them over Kansas City potentially because of how great that defense is. But you got to sit here and see if Sam Darnold goes back into what Sam Darnold has tended to be. That is why I've got the Vikings as the third best team in the National Football League. The team they will be playing has been number 2 all season long, has not moved a spot. That is the Detroit Lions. Dan Campbell, what'd y'all do on Sunday?
Kneecap.
Yeah, 47-9 kneecap. That's how that worked in Dallas, Texas. So, listen, the loss of Aiden Hutchinson is absolutely devastating for this Detroit Lions team. Here's the good news for Detroit, okay? Because I've bagged on their defense all season long. Folks, they're top 10 in scoring defense. Like, I was shocked when I saw that stat today. Again, you could say they didn't play well against Seattle, but they played great against Dallas, so that kind of evens itself out. I like this Lions secondary. Brian Branch, Kirby Joseph, Carlton Davis got hurt against the Cowboys, so we'll see if he's able to. He struggled at times this year, but I still believe in him as a good vet, has won a Super Bowl in the past. Listen, Detroit's going to be active in trying getting a pass rusher. Obviously, I and everybody and their grandmama has suggested Max Crosby. I'd love that fit for Detroit. We'll see if that happens. But nonetheless, this offense is just insane. It's kind of ridiculous. You got Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, who was great, by the way, on Sunday. You got Jamison Williams, who could hit you over the top. You got Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's a great receiving threat, route runner, top 10 in the league in my mind. Tim Patrick, right? I was a big Tim Patrick fan back in the day when he was in Denver, and it's like, the injuries hurt him. Tim Patrick's out there making plays on deep balls by Jared Goff, who just so happened to have a pass rating over 150. Behind, by the way, Sam Laporta as well, catching a pass off a lateral. Jared Goff stands behind the best offensive line football. It's an unbelievable coaching staff in Detroit. Ben Johnson's going to be a head coach in 2025, and Dan Campbell has these guys ready to play every single Sunday. Their only loss is to Tampa Bay. It's not bad. This Detroit Lions team is stacked. I think they're the best roster in football at this point. I'm willing to give them that edge over San Francisco. Detroit, the Lions are the second best team in the National Football League. Again, we're in week 7. It's anticlimactic. They've been number 1 for some time. Could they lose for once since Christmas? It is, of course, the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs are the best team in the National Football League, and here's why. I don't know. They have a defense that holds their opponents to under 10 points lower than their average points per game. That seems like it should matter. They have Chris Jones, who's playing outstanding football, particularly in the fourth quarter. Listen, Patrick Mahomes has not played great this year. 6 touchdowns, 6 picks, but I would almost use that as an addition to my argument and say Mahomes isn't playing that well. Had they beaten the Ravens, the Bengals are still good. They have Joe Burrow. They beaten the Falcons on the road. They beaten the Chargers on the road, but really at home because it's Chargers never have home games. And of course, the Saints, who aren't that good. But the first 4 games against all teams in the AFC that we consider good to really good, in the case of the Baltimore Ravens, obviously. And I love Atlanta this year as a real playoff team and a division winner. Defense is outstanding. Travis Kelce still hasn't caught a touchdown this year. Travis Kelce's not going to have a lot of big games until the playoffs. I'm willing, after what he did last year in the postseason in January and February, to give him the benefit of the doubt. If Mahomes has been playing this poorly for this long, it's going to turn around at some point. If he gets Juju Smith-Schuster going, who's done nothing outside of Kansas City, at least since the 2020 season, the guy's been unbelievable with Mahomes. Kareem Hunt, just insert him, and he'll run for 100 yards. Andy Reid and Mahomes can work magic. And by the way, they're playing San Francisco off a bye. Andy Reid, 21-4 off a bye. Jeez, forget about it. The Chiefs, once again, are the best team in the National Football League. So let's go in before we get to the comments. Look at the list right here. Top to bottom, from 10 to 1, we'll read it backwards. So San Francisco 49ers are 10th, followed by the Buccaneers, Falcons, Chargers, Packers, and in the top 5, which, by the way, the exact same top 5 as we had a week ago. At number 5, the Ravens, the Texans at 4, Minnesota 3, and then the Lions at 2 and the Chiefs at 1, the number 1 and 2 spots, which was my Super Bowl prediction before the season, Chiefs and Lions, that has maintained from week 1 to week 7. Wouldn't that be something if that stays the same till mid-season? If we're in week 9, it's like Chiefs, Lions. I think those are the best teams. Like, why am I not supposed to act like defense matters? You know? Listen. That explosion is coming from Kansas City because I think they're going to add a real weapon. I heard somebody suggest Cooper Kupp, which, I mean, look, if the Rams lose it, who do the Rams play this week? I think they play the Raiders, don't they? Yeah, they play the Raiders. Listen, the Rams lose the Raiders as a 6.5 point favorite. The Rams are done. And that was one of my bold predictions. Rams to eke out over the Niners to win the NFC West. If they lose, they're cooked. They're done. And Stafford could retire. McVay almost retired 2 years ago, so we'll see with him. Cooper Kupp, by the way, DeAndre Hopkins as well with the Titans. DeAndre going to waste the rest of his career with Will Levis. First of all, Kansas City has to get a guy with no Hollywood Brown, Rashee Rice. So there you go. Jeff. Is that Jeff? All right. He says, Bryson, I don't think the Texans are better than the Packers. I just think they found their rhythm a little bit faster than the Packers. But now the Packers are rolling, and I think they'll beat the Texans on Sunday. Again, and Jeff said it. Some incredible games this week. Can we read the games in the NFL this week, the big ones, okay? So as a nice little, I'm about to predict this game in just a second. As a nice little homecoming, you got Sean Payton and the Broncos coming to New Orleans to play the Saints. So that's at least a cool story in that spot. Look, you got 2 one-win teams in London on Sunday morning, the Patriots and Jaguars. In my own twisted way, I find this kind of fascinating, okay, because Drake May gets a good defense, very good defense. I'd go so far as to say elite in Houston, played pretty well against a bad Jaguars defense with Trevor Lawrence of the Jags, where it's like, you lose this game, Doug Peterson's gone. And we start to ask more and more questions about Trevor. So that's the Sunday morning game. Texans-Packers. You got Lions-Vikings. Those 2 games, the early window, it's NFL do a better. Like, one of these games should have been last week because, frankly, I didn't think there were that many, great games in week 6. But in that early window, NFL Sunday Ticket, God bless y'all for even existing for us to even see these games at the same time. These are, that's 4 legit contenders right there. Seahawks-Falcons is an interesting game in Atlanta. Bengals-Browns, Joe Burrow has struggled against Cleveland. And Deshaun Watson's been bad, so we'll see. Then you got Chiefs-Niners Super Bowl rematch. That is, by the way, Russell Wilson versus Aaron Rodgers, which I wish it was Justin Fields versus Aaron Rodgers. Davante Adams making his debut. Sunday Night Football, that's going to be a blast. And then a Monday night, by the way, you got Ravens-Buccaneers, which is a fantastic watch. And then you got Chargers-Cardinals, Herbert versus Kyler. There are, to your point, Jeff, there are some incredible games this weekend as early as the early window. Texans-Packers from Lambeau and Lions-Vikings. That's as good as it gets. You won't get a better 1 o'clock window than that. You just won't. Jeff, hell no in the Lions. They just lost their best player, and there ain't really anybody that can replace him right now that's available that will even be close to him. I already have my concerns about their defense. Again, that's fair. And that's my concern. As a guy who picked him to win the Super Bowl almost entirely based off motivation from Dan Campbell, having them ready to play every week, and B, their offense is silly loaded. It's, again, crazy what they have in Detroit in terms of their weapons. See, it's so funny, Jerry Jones. You can pay a quarterback $50+ million and still have a loaded offense around him. It can be done. Brad Holmes is as good as they come, man. He is. And by the way, too, about Brad Holmes, I remember I saw a video of him when the Lions broke their long playoff drought losing streak by beating the Rams in the wild card. And Brad Holmes, I think he's walking to an elevator in the stadium at Ford Field and is pumping his fist and is let's go. Reminds you a lot of Dan Campbell. It's these two, get these 2 guys that in the same room talking football. Man, it is hard not to love the Detroit Lions playing football. If you don't like that, you don't like football. You don't. I'm sorry. You should turn off the television. If you don't like watching the Detroit Lions, you don't have to love them as a team. If you don't like watching them play, something's wrong with you. I'm sorry. Something's up there. Speaking of which, we got a game tomorrow night to kick off week 7, so let's get back to there. Sean Payton, head coach of the Broncos, coming back to New Orleans, a franchise that he coached for 16 years with Drew Brees obviously at the helm. They had incredible success, won the Saints their first Super Bowl in franchise history. Drew Brees, of course, I'm sure he'll be in attendance at the Superdome, as well as a bunch of former Saints. Some of them on the team have played for Sean Payton. You got the Broncos, you got the Saints from the Superdome. Sorry, my voice cracked there. The Broncos on the road, really interesting, 3-point road favorites. Now, bad news for Denver coming in this game, no Patrick Surtain. Patrick Surtain suffered an injury on Sunday. He's going to be out for this game. So the best corner, in my opinion, in the NFL is not going to play on tomorrow night in New Orleans. Now, the good news is for the Broncos, Chris Olave, and it's unfortunate news obviously for Olave, is injured for this game. He's out, as well as Shaheed, who's been an unbelievable deep threat. He's injured for this game. So the Saints are without 2 of their best guys on the outside. Spencer Rattler, had some moments against Tampa Bay. We know the Bucs don't have a very good defense, but ended up having a passer rating, I think, of like 60. The bad news is he's playing a Broncos defense that has an outstanding defensive line, can get to the quarterback on a consistent basis. So this could be a long night for Spencer Rattler. I think it'll be relatively close. I don't think it's going to be some blowouts. But Bo Nix, been pretty impressed. I mean, it's the rookie seasons for these quarterbacks have looked about how I thought they look. I thought Caleb and Jaden this year, because I love Penix in the future. I freaking love Michael Penix. But I thought Daniels and Caleb would be the best rookie quarterbacks this year, with Bo Nix coming in after that, because Bo Nix has Sean Payton. So Cortland Sutton can make some big plays down the field. Listen, Sean Payton's going to try and pull out all the tricks for his return home. He wants this badly. His players want it badly for him. So give me the Denver Broncos in the spot, 24-17 over the New Orleans Saints. Sean Payton wins his homecoming game. The Broncos do cover the 3-point spread and win this one 24-17 over the New Orleans Saints. By the way, I just want to put this out there. Week 6 was kind to me because I went 13-1 in my picks. And for those wondering, the one incorrect pick was my upset of the week. Why could I have not chosen a different upset? With the Cleveland Browns beating the Eagles. Now, by the way, in my defense, it was close. That's why we clown Nick. One of the reasons we clown Nick Sirianni is like, bro, you barely beat the Browns. Like, congratulations. I'm not blown away by that. 13-1 last week. I mean, listen, you can't do much better than that than undefeated. Just saying. Jeff in the comments that we'll get out of here. He says, just some reports that the left guard out there and center missed some practices. They've dealt with a lot of injuries the Saints have on the interior of their O-line. And so did their right guard, and Carr's still hurt, and Alvin Kamara is still banged up. Listen, it's, maybe I bailed, and I try not to do this, folks. I try not to. It's part of the reason I'm hanging on for dear life on Trevor Lawrence. Is I don't like bailing. I'm a big on pick integrity and also take integrity. Now, if I'm just proven I guess it's kind of subjective to a certain degree in terms of the timeline, is just taking it onto my brain for a second, that I'm going to hang on to dear life for a take because I feel strongly based on data, because I'm just not going to throw out a take with no data and evidence whatsoever to support my argument, that eventually those numbers and data are going to line up in my favor. And when the Saints blow out the Panthers, okay, it's the Panthers. And then they go into Dallas and blow out the Cowboys, which looks like an even more confusing loss now that we see what the Saints are. It's like I said before the year, part of the reason I'm saying this, I said before the year I had the Saints last in the NFC South. Now, they're game out of last right now as we sit here today. They certainly, they are Carolina, darn sure, are not catching up to Atlanta or Tampa Bay. And I apologize to Saints fans the next day on the show. I'm like, hey, I had y'all winning like 4 games. I said Spencer Rattler was going to come in, which I was right on. Spencer Rattler was going to come in at some point this year. Dennis Allen was going to get fired. Dennis Allen's still not a good coach. He's just not. Head coach, at least. Great defensive coordinator, bad head coach. I'm like, the Saints are going to be one of the worst teams in the league. They're going to be drafting quarterback. Should have stayed with that take. It would have been crazy unpopular at the time, but I should have stayed with it, darn it. Because they're about to fall to 2-5. About to fall to 2-5. Final questions, then seriously, we have to get out of here. Jeff, Bo Nix over 191 passing yards, Kamara under 69 rushing yards. I will say for Bo Nix, over on the passing yards. He's played, again, I know he had the 60 yards against the New York Jets in that game against the Jets where he had like -7 passing yards in the first half. Over on Bo Nix, Kamara on the 69 rushing yards. The thing is, I think the Saints will be playing in a hole so much, and Kamara, as you said, is banged up. I'll go under on the Kamara rushing yards. Over 1.5 field goals for the Saints kicker. Under. I'm going to go under for him. And Sutton over 45.5. No question about it. Do some over-unders and carving up live. Giving y'all some gambling advice. So there you go. All right. With that is all the time here for today's episode of Carving Up Live. Please catch us on Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right here on Facebook, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. Of course, be sure to like, share, comment, and please take 2 seconds out of your day. Hit that big red subscribe button down there. It helps the channel grow exponentially. Our next goal, our next stated goal, and we're ways off of it, but we got to set the bar high, is to get to 5,000 subscribers. So if you have not subscribed, just takes a couple seconds. Please take 2 seconds out of your day. Hit that big red subscribe button down there, and boom, You're part of the Carving It Up family. If you have subscribed and you are a part of the Carving It Up family, thank you so much. We appreciate your love, your support. Again, Carving Up nearing its 5-year anniversary on Monday. I cannot believe it. So thank you to everybody who has supported this thing from day one. Please tell your friends about it, your family about it, everybody you know about Carving Up Live, except for your sleeping cat, who we had to take to the vet yesterday, and let's just say it was an adventure. I'll tell you, Nealon is a different personality. I was going to say he's a different cat, but he's literally a cat. Just as importantly, be sure to go subscribe to the Grid Network. That is GRYD, the Grid Podcast Network, right here on YouTube, as well as any and everywhere that you get your favorite podcasts, be it Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, any and everywhere that you get your favorite podcasts. You can find us at the Grid Network, where we dare to be different. Patrick Brown, who was in the comments, he writes some great articles. Literally just put some out today on the Grid's website. Please go check those out. Give Patrick some love. Check out his articles. The link to the website is on the Grid's Instagram. You can also just search the Grid Network, and one of the first links you'll see is the website link. So check that out, as well as our other content creators. We've got some great talented people. We had the 8 o'clock spot last night. Barry Grant Jr., who's a happy Mets fan. The Mets got a big game 3 against the Dodgers tonight. I got the Mets winning that game and taking a 2-1 lead. So great playoff baseball. I'm a Red Sox fan. You can see, wearing my hoodie. So Mets are our ally. So go Mets. We have a shared hate of the Yankees. So let's go Mets for, I guess the next 2 to 3 weeks or so. Barry won the show, but Arthur, Paris, newcomers to the Grid, they had a great performance as well. 8 o'clock spot every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific time on the Grid Network's YouTube channel. All right. That's all we got. Is that it? That's it. All right. We will see you guys on Friday. Please be sure to stay safe out there. Please be sure to take care of your physical as well as your mental health. And please be sure to contact your local state representatives and senators to demand change for gun violence in America. Doesn't matter where you lean, right, left, center. This is an issue that impacts every single one of us as Americans on a day-to-day basis. And no matter what anybody tries to gaslight you and tell you, oh, it's not a problem, or oh, there's only one solution to the problem, both are BS. Both are not true. It's a huge problem that needs a number of nuanced, detailed solutions to solve it. And especially this being an election year, if any of the candidates that you are voting for on your ballot in whatever state that you're in, even up to the federal level, of course, if there's anybody that doesn't show a sense of urgency or even so much as a resistance to addressing this problem, either vote them out or vote against them, because we have got to address this as soon as possible and be able to protect the people of this beautiful nation from such a terrible epidemic. So there you go. All right. Playoff again. We're in the prime sports season, y'all. It's October. Basketball starts a week from tonight. Or actually 6 days. The Warriors play a week from tonight. By the way, Warriors looking pretty good. Undefeated in the preseason. It's something. Anyways, great month of October. A lot of sports to talk about. And we'll have more for you, obviously, on Friday. Ballview, Tennessee, Alabama. Oh, my goodness. Can't wait. So we'll see you then. Stay safe out there. God bless y'all. Peace out. I hope I'm not excommunicated for saying let's go Mets from Red Sox Nation. At least I hope not. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.